Hey there. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Hi, if you are new here, my name is Chanel. I'm the designer behind CV Fiberworks. And today I'm doing an interview with a fellow crocheter and plushie maker named Beth Olmsted. If you haven't heard of her business, I really hope you'll enjoy this interview. We had so much fun talking about not only what she does, but the topics that are really close to her heart and where she wants to go with her business. So let's get right into it. Hi,
Hey, thanks for having me.
it's good to have you. It's my first interview. I'm very excited to have you. I'm glad you were able to make it.
Yes, so fun.
So let's start with introductions. Can you share who you are and about your business?
Absolutely. So I am Beth Olmsted. I am a nurse diabetes educator and one of the designers behind CrochetRx. My daughters run this business with me. They are 15 and 12 currently. That seems so strange to say. They are growing up. And I mostly do in-person craft shows. We moved across country about 5 years ago for my husband's job, and this has, as a remote worker, this is one of the ways that I get out in the community, and it's really been a lifeline for getting out and being involved in different social areas with my local area.
That's so fun. And your daughters do the markets with you too?
Yes, yes, it's a full family event. My husband
Oh,
does a lot of the heavy lifting, and he is also my tech support. So he's an engineer, so he does my wonderful spreadsheets and a lot of the tech support behind the scenes. So yes, we all pack up and spend the day wherever, and then so it's a great way to get out of the house.
that's awesome. So, where can people find you online?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram at CrochetRx NC, and then on YouTube and Palm Street, Crochet RX. There's no NC on those two
Okay, we'll make sure to
things.
put all the
And
links in the
yeah.
description. Yeah,
And then my logo is essentially a prescription pad with the yellow Crochet RX. So you can
that's so
find that
cool.
logo at all those locations.
Awesome. So, how did you get started with crochet?
So, studying for my boards to become a certified education specialist for diabetes, I needed something to do. If I was just listening and watching these PowerPoints and all of these lectures, I would sit and eat because I needed something to stay awake. Otherwise, they aren't. Well, it is very interesting and I love to learn. Just listening to these things are not the most engaging. This was during COVID. We are all remote. I cannot be in person to these lectures. So I had to do something. So I picked up crochet and I've done craft. Crafting is a gateway sport. We
It
go
really
from one
is.
thing to another. And so this isn't my first rodeo in crafting. And it was just I needed to do something different with my hands to where I could listen and be attentive, but still I wasn't putting my hand in a chip bag. So this was something that I could do. I picked up on the counting fairly easily. There were times where I needed to pause when things got a little bit more intricate and had to figure out the counting. And then once we got back to, steady rows, I was able to replay my areas of those lectures. But it was a very good calming activity to where my mind was able to be engaged in the learning while my hands stayed engaged and out of the food.
That's so cool. Honestly, I wish I had crocheted in college. I probably would have gotten more done. Um, so when you started your business, I know you said you started with other crafts. So what crafts got you into the gateway?
So I was Vinyl RX until about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and I transitioned to Crochet RX. So I did a number of coat hangers. I did a bunch of glass blocks with different decals, things on them, lighted things. I did memorial stones for like pet memorials with boat vinyl, so that they could be outside in memorial gardens, things like that.
That's
Um,
sweet.
so I really was, I had multiple vinyl cutting machines. I was hardcore vinyl. Now I want nothing to do with it, quite honestly. I'm even contemplating selling my machines. That's how far away from it I have gotten. So that's where I started. But I really enjoy working this differently. It's vinyl has gotten to be very frustrating with the intricacies of peeling and pulling it all apart. I just much prefer the softness of the plush.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I was really into ceramics and I ended up having to just get rid of all that stuff. It's too expensive of a hobby. Not that yarn isn't expensive, but it's a whole
It's
other topic. Um, so where do you find your inspiration for your work?
I've always loved stuffed animals. I still have stuffed animals from when I was a child, and my children have always loved stuffed animals as well. And I also love zoos. Could spend forever in a zoo. So as we go to these different zoos and we see all of these different plushies, I cannot bring all of them home. And I just love making all these plushies. I went through a big squishmallow phase where I like wanted to remake every squishmallow I saw into a crocheted plushie. And I love making the animals. They are so much fun. They have so much character. I have a whole lot of cats myself. You can see a bunch of
I
my love
know.
cats
I was
behind me.
noticing the love cats.
We've got we just got 6 new chicks. So we've got 19 chickens now.
Wow.
So love making I just love all the animals and my daughters do as well. So we have a whole lot of fun with both the barnyard and the zoo and the exotic animals.
Does your husband ever request an animal?
No. He, however, has started collecting otters when we go to the zoos and pick
Oh.
things up. And so I've not made an otter. I have collected patterns for otters, but I've not made an otter yet.
My husband wants an opossum, and I keep
Oh,
telling him like when I get a good idea for one, I will, but so far, I don't know, not yet. So, when did you start doing markets?
so I had done the markets for the vinyl. And then my teeny little town that I moved to did a Christmas show the year after COVID. So we moved, my husband accepted the job, the world shut down, we moved, all in like a 6 week time span.
Oh, that's
Uh,
stressful. Jeez.
so the teeny little town that we moved to then did a Christmas show the year after COVID. So I guess that would have been 21.
Hmm.
So that would have been my first show with crochet. And it's like, well, it's like it was 10 or $20. I'll just do it. And it really was very much more popular than I expected. I went in with very low expectations. I didn't feel that I was that great. I had much higher expectations for myself, having come from other crafts, but I had no competition and people really enjoyed the products. So I had a really good first show for that craft. And it then just it's like, well, I'll keep making them. They keep selling. And, as long as I can keep selling them because I can't keep everything I make. There's no way to store it all. As much as my kids would love to keep all the plushies, there is
Yeah.
just no way. You cannot buy a house big enough for all of that.
Yeah.
So it's been fun and truly the kids, while it is, it can be hard and it's labor to set up for shows and tear down and all of that. The kids have said that they enjoy the opportunity to get out of the house and see different places.
Yeah, and I bet it's a lot of fun for them too. I mean, especially if your kids are very outgoing to be able to like talk to people and talk about what they've made, especially since they're a part of making it and they're not just, stand helpers.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely do give them credit. As somebody picks something up and compliments it, it's like, oh, well, the teenager actually made that. And so, it always feels good for somebody to appreciate your work. And so to be
Yeah.
able to receive that compliment or see somebody's eyes light up when they, enjoy what you've made is always very fulfilling.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what is the biggest challenge you've had at markets?
Um, Recently it's the wind. This spring has been so windy. Even though things are weighted down and I have sides to guard against things, it has been so windy. I've had displays blow over. And I've had displays blow over in the past, but I've like Fort Knoxed things, but not enough. And then I was set up at a nursery this spring, and just the way that the ground was, like dirt was just blowing. It was just like a Wild West dirt storm. blowing across, and just everything was dirty. I ended up spending hours after we got home vacuuming everything. It
Oh,
was
geez.
so frustrating. And now I end up, if I don't know if you can see, but this kitty here is in a clear plastic bag. So now I
Oh.
put all of my white plushies into clear bags
Mm.
because it was just, I couldn't get the dirt out of some of them. It was so frustrating. So the other thing would be is that people just don't always appreciate the time that is spent. Some of my big turtles, they look at the price tag and they're like, really? Like, well, that took me like 2.5 hours to make. Like, what do you make for your job? And so I don't say it like that to them, but that's certainly going through the back of my mind when they scoff at the price and walk away. I'm like, the skein of yarn costs $12. What are you thinking my time is worth?
Yeah.
So, trying to, and I'm not good with comebacks on the spot. I will think of something 10 minutes after they walk away,
Same.
but I'm not very good at that instant, comeback. So I don't get that good gratification of the quick jab.
Well, as satisfying as it might be to do a quick jab, I don't necessarily think it's always the right way to respond to a
Right,
situation.
right. Poor professionalism, poor
Yeah.
business owner. But I don't think of a proper way to word you know, something to say back, and I tend to just keep my mouth shut and they walk away. So I need to come up with some better phrasing for, this took me 2.5 hours to make. I only charge $10 an hour for my work, and so therefore this is priced at that.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah, it's really an education problem with because a crocheter will look at that and go, I know exactly how much plush yarn costs.
right.
And be like, oh, okay, $40 is reasonable for something that like extremely reasonable, honestly, for something that size. Um, but people who don't crochet, who don't know yarn, are thinking of like, the $5 skeins of jumbo super
Yes, at
saver and being like,
Walmart.
oh, it's only $5. Why are you charging so much? Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. Maybe there's a way we can work on that as a community to help people understand. But yeah. Mm. Do you have any tips to share about those thinking of getting into markets?
Um, really finding what gives you joy and doing that. Certainly, there are those that find what is trending and they continue to make those, mass produce those items, whether it's the leggy frogs or the octopus. Certainly, there's a place for those, and they are nice to get people into a booth at times. They're like, oh, I saw that on TikTok or whatever.
Mhm.
And sometimes those lower ticket items are what is in the budget for individuals. But making those things over and over isn't necessarily what brings a lot of crafters joy, because it is not something that spurs inspiration. And so when you see something on the street or you go to that zoo, you're like, oh my gosh, that panda is so squishy. And you go home and make that big squishy panda. That is what gives, it's fun. And then you can tell the stories. And I had a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, at one of my Christmas markets. She bought this huge jumbo snake. This snake was like 5.5 feet long. It was rainbow colored. My teenager had made it. It was huge. It was well taller than her, wrapped around her neck, went down to her knees. And a couple hours later, she came back, and her mom made her do all of her talking herself. And so they're talking amongst each other. And mom's like, you need to go ask her. So she comes up to me. She's like, do you have anything my snake would eat? I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. So finally, I found a couple frogs, and she bought 2 frogs for her snake to eat. Well, we came home
Adorable.
and we started making mice. And so every market since, we have had a little basket next to the snakes that say snake snacks, so that if you buy a snake and you feel the need to get something for your snake, you can have a snake snack. We've got little lizards, we've got mice, we've got frogs, but it is so much fun to tell that story. And it is so cute. And it resonates with a lot of people. And it's not something that I would have ever thought of on my own, but it is just absolutely adorable. And that little girl is just precious, and she will forever be just the highlight of that show.
That
And
is so
so
sweet.
it it's just adorable. And so being able to retell that story, and maybe it becomes an upsell for somebody else who was buying a snake and now decides that they need a mouse too. So it just, and you can tell when somebody is passionate about what they do versus somebody who is mass producing octopuses.
Yeah, well, and it helps you stand out too, I imagine, next to booths who only have,
Yes.
mass-produced leggy frogs, which I think they're cute, don't get me wrong, but
Yes. And I've had people compliment on the variety of things that I have, that I don't just make TikTok
yeah.
whatevers.
Do you plan on continuing doing in-person events, or are you going to pivot to do more online?
I will continue doing in person because it really just fills me up watching these individuals find their plushie. Yeah, watching the eyes light up, even adults that go, "You've got a succulent turtle." It is so much fun. And I just love that connection. And, there's nothing wrong with an adult having a desk full of plushies with their office. So I really just, I enjoy that connection. I don't get that same connection with the online sales. I do have a little bit of dialogue, but not that same connection. Certainly, it's a whole lot easier to keep everything in my craft room, not pack up. I don't have booth fees. There's a little bit higher of seller fees on these online platforms, which does, depending on how much you're doing, it can kind of be comparable to a low market booth fee. So it could be comparable in that aspect, is a whole lot less time. You don't have your drive time to get there, you don't have your setup time, that kind of things. So the online platform certainly can have its place, but you've got to do all the marketing yourself. You don't have the opportunity to have the other vendors bring their following, and you don't have the market and the venue doing that marketing as well. So I have found that to be challenging as a small business that lives in a very rural area. I don't have that kind of online following to bring that kind of crowd to an online platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. And really, markets are fun. The only reason I personally don't do them is because my joint pain, and I use thinner yarn also. So
Mhm.
I literally cannot produce enough to do a market. It's just me. My husband refuses to learn. Um, well, do you have any markets upcoming that you want to share about?
So the next one I have is an Oberry quarter auction. It is for a local, um, it's not a children's hospital. It's for children with disabilities, and it helps to fill the gaps for what insurance doesn't pay for. It's not convenience items, but that's what insurance calls them. So, like a shower chair. So, for a child who can't take a shower and isn't safe in a bathtub, they need these different accommodations in order
Okay.
to be safe to do these. Even like a wheelchair, that a standard wheelchair may not fit in their home. So, they need a wheelchair that is narrower, that can fit in their home, but insurance
Consider a
will not
wheelchair a
cover it.
convenience item?
That's considered a convenience
Is
item.
it?
It's absurd. It is
Gosh.
absurd the way that insurance can deny things. So this center helps these children with disabilities, and these are lifelong disabilities. This is not something that somebody is going to recover from next year or anything like that. These are growing, these are things that these individuals will have the rest of their lives. So they need a new wheelchair every couple of years because they continue to outgrow. These children, these wheelchairs do not adapt to the growth of these children. They have to be custom fit every couple of years to adapt to support the head because they cannot hold these different appendages appropriately. So this is something that I've grown close to a number of these organizations, and they actually asked me to be part of the board, but I just can't commit to their meeting timeframes. But as a nurse, it's something that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And it's been fun watching these kids that they bring to these events who have benefited from these different fundraisers, watching them succeed. One little girl, with her braces and everything else, she's just learned to walk. She's about 4 and she's just learning to walk. And it's just so heartwarming. So another reason I can't give up these in-person events, because it really just fills the cup.
Yeah, that's amazing. We'll make sure to put the links to that if the fundraiser has a website or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, we'll put that all down in the description because that would be really cool if I could send, hey, you're watching, go support because that is amazing.
Yes.
And earlier you mentioned Palm Street, which I have never heard of. Could you talk a little bit more about how that works and live stream sales?
Yes. So it had started originally out during COVID as a plant selling platform. And I don't remember what the original name was, but recently it has switched to more of a plant and crafting platform. So there's ceramics and some other different jewelry handcraft businesses on there. And recently another crocheter that I watch on YouTube, Ale Crochet, has really started being very successful on here. And I thought I would give it a shot. However, she has like tens of thousands of followers. And so her experience has been very different from mine. And I'm working on it, but I'm nowhere near the success that she is. So they have two options. One is a live sale, and one is called a purge. So one is live, and one is just you put items in your shop, and you then have a specific time frame of like 6 hours to where people can purchase from your store. So
Okay.
the selling fees are close to 7% to Palm Street plus the credit card transactions. So it's letting them like another 3% to Stripe. So
Okay.
it does add up fairly quickly. You get to set your shipping. So I like have my shipping set at $8 plus $1 for extra item because I've found that it doesn't always calculate shipping super great based
Okay.
on rates and transactions, just like in general. Like even my Shopify store does a terrible job of calculating shipping. I don't know why. I enter the weights, I enter everything. It just does terrible.
Yeah.
So I just have a kind of flat rate. And then it gives you so long to ship it. The first 5 transactions, you do not get paid until they actually receive the item per the tracking. And then after you are verified for those 5 transactions, once things get like scanned into the shipping agent, so once USPS or UPS scans it into saying that they have possession of it, then they release the money for those future purchases. And people can then rate you and everything else, just like any other platform. You do set up you set up like a time for these lives, so you can set them up a couple weeks in advance and do a lot of marketing for it. You can set up coupons saying, an extra 10% off up to $20. Palm Street will also subsidize those sometimes if they have special events going on. So
Oh,
you can opt in to say, yes, I will participate in this. And so maybe Palm Street will do half of that 10% up to $20. So you
okay.
would then do 10 of that 20 and they would do 10 of that 20. They also have a different marketing option to where if you choose to market your events on a social media platform, they will partially reimburse some of that marketing. However, I haven't found a really good list of details or disclosures on that, so I have not participated in that marketing
Okay.
option just because I'm wary. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money that's not going to get reimbursed.
Right. Yeah.
So, but there's a number of options there. The support has been very good for the Palm Street side. If I've had any questions, they have been very responsive,
Mm.
but you really have to drive your own traffic there. It is a small platform, and unless you have a number of people that have like flagged your event, they don't get notified that this is happening unless they just stumble upon it.
Okay. Huh. It's kind of a
So
weird.
you would have to be on the platform just scrolling through in order to see that I'm having a sale,
Okay.
unless you've already subscribed and know that I'm there.
Huh.
So it
Interesting.
presents challenges if you don't already have a large following.
Yeah. Do you only ship to the US?
I do. So Palm Street only does the US.
Okay. I was wondering
So
about
that
that too.
is
Okay.
limited there.
Yeah.
I for Shopify, I only do the US. For taxes and customs and stuff like that, I just haven't explored other options.
Yeah, well, and with all of the regulations in the EU and stuff going on, I don't blame you.
Right.
So you are also a homeschool mom, right? How
Yeah.
do you balance all of that, running a business and doing everything?
So it has definitely been a work in progress, and each phase of life has come with different adjustments. Certainly, as kids were littler, they required a lot more hands-on. Now that we have teenage and preteen, they do things a lot more independently. Kids are both severely dyslexic. And when we moved and my mental health took a major hit, losing my whole village and support system, I did end up outsourcing their dyslexic tutoring. That was something that I had been having a large role in previously, but it was just something that was the easiest to offload and move elsewhere. So they meet with a tutor. They each have 2 hours of tutoring every week. And then most of their homeschooling is done on the computer now. So they have all of their curriculum online. They do all of their learning, their review, their quizzes, everything is online. And then we supplement that with, library and field trips and things like that. My
Okay.
schedule has also been very much so I work as a contract employee. So I do not work a typical 9 to 5, 4 days, 5 days a week. I tend to set my own schedule. And so I can then schedule as long as I get my work done and get my patient appointments. I then schedule myself to work essentially 4 days a week. And I then spend a full day doing things with the kids, with the library, exploring. We now live an hour from the beach, so tomorrow we are planning to head to the beach for some therapeutic time there. The beach is definitely my happy place.
Oh.
So get our toes in the sand and all of that good stuff. And then we have a lot of history around us being in North Carolina.
Mhm.
So lots of Civil War and Revolutionary War, lots of all of that. So it's fun to explore and see all of these museums and all of that. So we're able to supplement curriculum and do that as well. And then now with the older one being high school age, we also have free dual enrollment, and so we are looking towards the different classes that she can take as college level at the community colleges and working on figuring out how to implement that into her studies as well. So lots of navigating and figuring out new pathways once again. But I've been very lucky that my jobs have always been flexible enough. My husband travels for work, so I haven't been able to do like a 312s or something like that of a normal hospital shift of a nurse. So these have been other ways to accommodate both the family and his travel schedule and, be the stable parent here at the house.
That sounds busy. Very, very busy.
But I never leave the house except for craft shows. So I never feel like I'm busy until I start telling people what I'll be doing.
I mean, that's amazing though that you manage all of that. And I guess I have an old school view of homeschooling in my head where it's like just, hours in front of a book, but it's totally changed now.
Yeah, it's amazing that, what you can get done. And truly, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. My kids need a whole lot of accommodations because of the reading issue. But really, there's so much that they can learn in other ways through audiobooks and other learning adaptions that they get done so fast, and then they can be kids. They can jump on the trampoline, they can run around, they can ride their bikes and have gym class the whole rest of the day.
That's so awesome. Oh my goodness. Um, do you have any other advice for busy moms trying to run a business and life and kids and everything?
You can't do it all. And this has been a lesson that I continue to learn. I am terrible at asking for help, and outsourcing to the tutoring was something that I cried over and was so hard for me to do. And we've been blessed with just a phenomenal tutor. She's just really been wonderful for both of my kids. Thankfully, she had the opening for the first one. And then as soon as she had an opening, we got the second one in with her as well. And really, you just need to recognize that you cannot do it all and know, as hard as it is, when to ask for help.
Yeah. Now that I've got one on the way, I need to work on that. My husband's been trying to tell me to ask for help for years, and that was before we have kids. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard because you feel like you should be the responsible one and you don't want to burden anybody else with, your sort of things. But, there's only so much you can do. It truly takes a village, but that village can't be there if they don't know what you need.
yeah, definitely. Do you have any, or what does your dream look like in regards to your business? Like, if you could picture it in 10, 15 years.
I would really like to increase the online portion. So I'm not as dependent on these in-person markets because market is fluctuating and it is physical,
Mhm.
and my ability to do as much physical now is going to change. I'm going to lose some of my physical labor. In 10 years I will have a kid who is done with college and probably gone.
Yeah.
So potentially both of them. So it's gonna be a whole lot different. And so I would like to be able to transition more towards some of these online things with more of the pattern writing and move more sales online. I still want to have some of that in person, but I would like to be able to scale it down to where it's not quite so much of a physical display, because the tables, the tent, everything is very heavy. And while it does look really good and I am proud of the way that it looks, it just does take a toll on the body and it does require a recovery period. Even
Sure.
just the standing and the tent for 4 to 6 hours at a time as you greet and talk to people, it can be a lot. So, working on cutting back from that and having a more of a balance of my income, be online and not the in person.
Do you think your kids would also transition into like pattern writing to help you along with it, or is that something like you really want to take over?
Um, I, I don't know. Their brains work so differently than mine does. I don't know about that reverse engineering process for them. It would be something to explore.
I'm kind of curious. I mean, obviously, I don't have any experience with dyslexia, but if maybe in the course of you developing patterns, if they can help you, I mean, we're always looking for accessibility. If they can
Mhm.
provide insight on how to make it accessible for people who do have disabilities like that. Um, because I mean, I've worked on like left-handed versions of patterns, but I wouldn't have the first clue on how to make it dyslexic appropriate, you know?
Yeah, the font is a big one, making
Okay.
sure that to where your T's and your F's, if the T is just even too curvy, it's easy enough to distinguish it as something else. So
Okay.
making sure it's a very block font to where there is no question of what letter it is. If it looks too cursive-y, it can easily be mistaken for something else. So just
Okay.
the simple font issue and making it large enough to, something, if you think of the large font books for whether it's an accessible for an older individual or, just somebody with poor vision, you want those kind of fonts and those kind of larger typeface.
That makes sense. Huh. All right. Learning something new every day. Do you have any big goals for the rest of this year?
So I doubled my income last year. Um,
Oh,
I think it's
congratulations.
fairly, given how poor my spring shows have been this year, I think it's fairly lofty to do that again this year. But I would still like to try. As far as, my winter shows were just absolutely phenomenal last year. So I'm hoping that I can still get into all of my fall shows. A lot of them with PTAs and so forth have not figured out their PTA boards for the fall.
Yeah.
So those are a lot of those are in limbo. So hopefully they will get those figured out here in the next couple months so that come August I can get the rest. I've got dates kind of penciled in, knowing where they've been the last couple of years. Hopefully I can get those cemented down and get my fall booked out. But it was a lot of fun. I do really well at the school events,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that we can do that again this year.
Okay, awesome. Do you do more like you do more sales in the fall versus in fall and winter versus like earlier in the year?
So I haven't done a whole lot of spring events. Even with my other vinyl business, spring just wasn't something that I had pursued. And
Mhm.
I thought I would try and get out a little bit more this year so I didn't feel quite like the recluse. However, this spring, whether it's economy or whatever, the spring just has not done well for me. So I have nothing to compare it against, though, to know if this is just how springs are or if this is this spring. So fall is still where it's at for me.
Yeah, fall's personally my favorite. But I've seen online communities where the spring season, especially this year, is kind of bad, like all around. Everyone I follow that does markets is like it's not doing good this year, but hopefully that'll turn around. I'm hoping for a good fall. I think this fall is going to be a good time for crocheters.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that everybody will come out and support small business.
Yeah. And do you want to share anything else before we wrap everything up?
Well, if I can be a resource for somebody, I would love to. I love to help and to teach, and certainly if people have questions, I would love to be a support.
Yeah. Do you offer any, I know you said you're a nurse. Do you offer any advice about like hand stretches or any like ergonomic tools that you recommend people should use? Or do you have resources that you like to use?
So I do have a couple in my YouTube. I do have a list of things that I use. I tend to rotate through crochet hooks just because I find that I have different hand grips based on the crochet hook that I have.
Hmm.
So that then changes a little bit of the muscle structure that I use, and so it helps prevent some of the hand fatigue. I am not the best at doing the hand stretches. I so the practice what I preach thing is, not the best there. But I do try when I think about it, but I'm not the best there. The best thing that I do is rotate through the
Okay.
crochet hooks to help change up the grip to prevent some of that fatigue. And I do, from my years of tumbling and dance, I already have some wrist issues.
Mhm.
So I already wear wrist braces every night as I sleep. And so that, helps with some of that pre-existing nerve damage.
Yeah. That's good to know. I'm trying not to develop arthritis by the time I turn 35, so I think we all need to be better about stretching. I don't do it either, as much as we probably should. Well, thank you for coming. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I will make sure all the links are in the description so we can go support that fundraiser. And hopefully, if you're in North Carolina, go see your show and support you, especially this fall. I really appreciate you coming on with me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
I hope you've enjoyed today's video and the interview. Make sure to check out all the links in the description box below. Go ahead and support Beth and that fundraiser that she was talking about. I'll have all of the information in the description box. And special thank you to my patrons for really being there for me during this kind of crazy time going on. And I want to know, are you interested in seeing some more interviews? So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you drop a comment in down below. And I'll see y'all next time. Have a great day. Bye.